Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me. I do very much appreciate that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeremy Gray, and I'm a fractional CFO. I also run my own consulting business, and I've just recently rebranded myself as the geriatric entrepreneur. I started my career in Europe, moved to the United States in 1993 for 13 years, operating in various businesses and states. I was always based in the Northeast, but I operate a mining operation in South Carolina and a chemical construction company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 2006, I moved here to Asia. I've been based in Singapore all that time, but working all across Asia from Japan down through to Australia, New Zealand, and out as far as India. My life's about to change. I'm about to move to or start my relocation to Vietnam, and I'm looking forward to the next stage of my life. And I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to talk about cash flow because I do consider cash flow one of the absolute essentials that as a business owner you need to manage and you need to understand. So I always say there are three fundamental laws of business, and they are do not run out of money, do not run out of money, and do not run out of money. Because the sad truth is the day you run out of money, the day you can't make payroll, the day you can't pay your suppliers is the day that your business ends. And all that hard work that you've put into developing your business goes up in smoke. I put in the left-hand side of my slide just some of the comments you'll often hear expressed about cash. Cash is king, cash is the lifeblood of the business. But I've added one which you may not have come across before, and that is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. Because whilst it's nice to be considered a $10 million company or a $1 million company, if that's your target, revenue in itself does not tell you much about the viability of your business. Uh, Sorry about that, folks. Someone coming in. But what is important is to understand your profit margins, what profit margin you're making, what profit you're generating, which is the sanity. But the reality is your business generating cash or not? And obviously, you want it to be generating cash. Now, the next point I come across, and I come across this a lot as a fractional CFO, is I'm told to people who have small businesses, and they say, look, I'm an entrepreneur, Jeremy. I'm not a finance expert. I have a bookkeeper to look after my accounting. And it's a very understandable attitude as someone who's running a business as an entrepreneur, but it's also a very, very dangerous one. Your bookkeeper is not responsible for making your business a success. Their role is to provide you with accounts, to account and report the transactions in your business and make sure they're following the regulations and rules of the countries that you're operating in. And also, you'll find many bookkeeping services, particularly if you're using an external bookkeeper, are not very good at developing cash flow statements. They'll give you a profit and loss, and they may give you a balance sheet, but they probably won't give you a cash flow statement. And it's your role as the business owner to make your business success. And to do that, you need to have some level of financial awareness because every decision you make as a business owner has financial implications. And if you don't understand the finances of your business, then you take the risk of making poor decisions. So what are we going to cover in the rest of our session? We're going to talk about what is cash flow and how does it differ from profitability. It's a very important distinction that you need to understand. We're going to talk about how you understand your burn rate. How fast are you spending cash? We're going to talk about controlling your overheads. It's very, very important that from the outset of your business that you are managing and controlling your overheads. And that leads us into spending wisely. Don't spend money on things that aren't going to deliver a return on your business. Avoid those vanity projects. I had a client who grossly overpaid themselves, to be quite frank, and they got their business into a lot of trouble. So avoid those vanity projects, meet your own expectations. And then finally, we're going to talk about working capital. I refer to working capital as the necessary evil of business, because almost any business you have, you're going to have some money tied up in working capital, whether that's inventories or whether it's receivables, i.e. the money that people owe you. You're going to have money tied up in working capital. And that's money that you can't use elsewhere in your business for investment. So I consider it a necessary evil. You have to have it, but really you want to keep it as low as possible. So what is cash flow? Well, cash flow refers to the net balance of cash coming in or out of your business at any specific point in time. And you can either have positive cash flow. Positive cash flow is when more money is coming into your business than is going out, or you can have negative cash flow. That is when more money is going out of your business than is coming in. And that's not a situation that is sustainable for any length of time. So is cash flow and profitability the same thing? No. Profitability is your revenues minus all your costs, and the balance that's left there is a profit. At least we hope it's a profit. Could be a loss, and it probably will be a loss when you're first launching your business, because you're going to have revenues before you start generating income. But profit is just the difference between the revenues and all the costs of your business. I mentioned the cash flow is the difference between cash coming in and out of your business. And it's important that you understand that a business can be profitable and still be bleeding cash. A loss-making business, on vice versa, can be making a loss and still generating cash, although that is not sustainable in the long term, because to achieve that, you're going to be running down your receivables, you're going to be running down your inventories, you may be selling some of your assets. So it's not sustainable to be a loss-making and still generating cash for any length of time. I think it's important that you understand the concept of growth to bankruptcy. More companies fail because they run out of cash than because they're unprofitable. And when you're starting out your business and you get the inkling that there's that large contract that maybe you can win, it's such a temptation to go for it. But do understand what it's going to cost you, because you're going to have to pay up front to deliver that on that contract, whether it is in terms of building up inventories, whether it's case of adding staff, but there are going to be upfront costs you're going to have to spend, and the revenue that comes in from that contract, that so tempting contract, is going to come in later than you think. Generally, people do not pay on time. So managing your burn rate, you need to understand how fast you're going through cash. Burn rate, it's just a fancy term for negative cash flow. It tends to be something that VCs talk about, or large startups. What's your burn rate? But it is just another name for negative cash flow. It cannot be calculated from the P&L. I've mentioned before the difference between the two, but it cannot be calculated because expenses going through your business which are not reflected on the P&L. If you buy an asset and you put it on the balance sheet, that cost, that money which has gone out of your business, is not reflected on the P&L, at least not immediately. Over time it is as depreciation. But you can't calculate your burn rate from your P&L. Understand your cash runway. Cash runway is just the amount of cash you have or have access to. You don't actually have to have it in cash. If you've got a line of credit, it can be part of your cash available. But you need to understand your cash runway. And as I said, if you have $200,000 worth of cash and your burn rate is $40,000 a month, you have a 5-month cash runway. It is recommended when you start your business that you try to start with a 12-month cash runway. when it comes to this area, do be aware of what I refer to as incomplete advice that's out there on the internet. These are a couple of comments I came across when I was looking on the internet. You cannot go bankrupt if you're making more money than you're spending. That's not true. You cannot go bankrupt if you have more money coming into your business than you're spending, but you can be making more money and still go bankrupt. Burn rate equals monthly operating revenues. No, burn rate, as I mentioned before, includes things like building up your inventories. It includes things like capital investments, those computers that you have to buy. It's all part of your burn rate. It's not just your monthly operating revenues. Make sure you know your break-even point. Your break-even point is when you have enough revenue coming in that's generating enough gross margin, i.e. revenue minus the cost to produce your product or services, and is covering your overhead. That gross margin is covering your overhead. At this point, your business is break-even and you have a neutral cash flow. And you need to understand what you need to do and when you are going to get to that break-even point. And it's going to take you longer to get there than you think. It always does. Things never go smoothly. And until then, you can have a negative cash flow. Obviously, the slower you can spend your money, reduce that burn rate, the longer you're going to have to get your business right, to get all the fundamentals in place, to modify your business plan. It's almost certain that your business is not going to run the way you expected it to. It takes time. And it gives you time to develop that MVP, that minimum viable product that all entrepreneurs try to achieve. And the minimum viable product is the product that you can launch that has enough features that you can get feedback from your potential customers as to whether the product is delivering the value that it should. Okay. Control your overheads. It really is a winning strategy. Walmart is the great example of a company that absolutely controls its costs and focuses on efficiency. And it's been a winning strategy for Walmart. If you're efficient in the way that you're managing your expenses, it gives you time to make a mistake or two, to recover and reset your business. But if you're inefficient, never mind how brilliant you are, you're not going to be able to deliver success. Check your assumptions about what's necessary for your business. Couple of little stories. One which I heard, this isn't a personal one, but a guy called Colin. Colin was an investment broker. He decided he was going to set up his own investment fund, and he decided he needed a fancy office in central London. He felt it was necessary to improve his image, to make his clients feel comfortable with him. In fact, it had the opposite effect. The clients felt he was spending too much money and shied away from him. And then a story from personal life. I had a friend who was going to set up an Italian restaurant. He really wanted that fancy brick pizza oven. He really wanted it. He couldn't afford it. He bought it anyway. And sadly, he ran out of money. So don't allow others or yourself to convince you to spend money that you don't need. It's your money. Spend it wisely. When considering what to spend your money on, think about these things. I mentioned Colin and his investment bank. How are potential customers going to perceive the spending? Will they see it as reasonable or will they see it as excessive? What's going to be the reaction of your employees? If you're telling them to control costs and you roll up into the office in that fancy car, your Maserati or Lamborghini, whatever your dream car is, how are they going to feel about your talk about controlling and managing expenses? It's a case of walking the talk. Make sure any spending delivers long-term benefits. Ensure it's a revenue generating asset or gives you some other benefit that's going to support your business. And focus your spending just on your company's core competencies. Spend your money wisely. Make sure you've got controls in place. Make sure you know where every dollar is going. Think about using credit cards where you can track the spending. Look at your bank statement, maybe even on a daily basis, but make sure you've got the controls in place that enable you to know where every dollar is going. Ensure that your structure reflects where you are in business. If you're still developing your products, you probably don't need a CFO like me. You don't need a CHRO. You probably even need a marketing officer at this point. But have a business plan. Have a headcount addition plan so that you know when you're going to need these people. Be a minimalist. Spend as little as possible. Identify your core competencies and outsource everything else. Don't spend money on other things. Avoid long-term commitments. Use IT where possible, and avoid staff churn. Make sure you hire right in the first place so you don't have high attrition rates. Replacing staff is very expensive. So now we come to that working capital, that necessary evil that we all have. Probably you know, but working capital consists of inventories, payables, and receivables. Failure to manage your working capital can lead to failure of your business. Bill talked about the fact that you want to make sure that your suppliers are in good shape, and I find too many people manage their payables by just paying late. That's no way to treat your suppliers. It's not how you want to be treated. Negotiate the terms, maybe early payment terms. Once you've negotiated them, stick with them. It'll put you in good stead later down the road if you ever need their help. Clearly set your payment terms with your customers in advance. Too often this conversation is neglected. Make them sign that they're going to pay you in 30 days. Probably still won't, but at least emotionally you've made them commit. Make sure you invoice promptly. Too many companies invoice just at the month end. Make sure your invoices are accurate, because suppliers love inaccurate invoices because it gives them an excuse not to pay. So make sure they're accurate. You may even want to consider e-invoicing, electronic invoicing. That will get them out faster and hopefully get them out accurately. One thing I've learned about inventories: keep your warehouse as small as you can, because if you give a manufacturing or operations guy a big warehouse, they'll fill it with inventory. So keep it tight. Do really focus on your working capital. It's an important part of your business. Well, we're coming to the end of my time. I hope you've enjoyed the talk. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Oh, and also, I didn't mention this is the last one. If anyone would like a copy of these slides, just drop me a note. I'll be happy to send them to you. Thank you for your attention.